Well, the Dodgers lost to the Phillies again, but this one looked like a baseball game, not batting practice for the Phillies. Baby steps, right? Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with us live here as we're recording on Wednesday night. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And you can make it easier to become an everydayer by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snyder. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like a lot of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room, so we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Nope, it's not. It's brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And with that said, let's jump right in. The Dodgers lost 4-3 to the Phillies. This one, it was a lot better than yesterday. Like Matty Man Dodge says in the chat, a heck of a lot better than yesterday. We were in this one at least, and not just in it. I mean, the two deciding runs for the Phillies scored on defensive flukes. Doesn't mean they don't count. That's not an excuse. It's to say this game really could have gone either way. The two runs in that inning, Gavin Stone gave up. Like the first three batters, it was a fly out to center and two ground outs to second base. That should have been the inning. Instead, it turned into a two-run inning because the fly out to center turned into a triple, and then they got two infield singles. It's dumb. It's baseball. It happens. But, you know, who knows what would have happened if Gavin Stone, if Andy Paez doesn't lose that fly ball. It's a 1-2-3 inning. In the fifth inning, Stone probably comes out, pitches the sixth inning. Who knows what would happen? Maybe Stone blows up in the sixth inning. I'm not saying they should have won. I'm saying it was just a weird way to lose. And this game looked like a battle between two teams that are fairly evenly matched. Two really good baseball teams playing pretty well. Unlike yesterday, this game had starting pitchers for both teams who will be postseason pitchers for the teams. That wasn't the case yesterday. The Phillies had maybe their best pitcher, Zach Wheeler, going against Bobby Miller, who is now in AAA, which we're going to talk about in the next segment. But Bobby Miller won't be pitching for the Dodgers in the postseason unless something drastically changes. Yesterday's version of Bobby Miller definitely won't be pitching the postseason for the Dodgers, and the Phillies were. And you know, again, like I know people always misinterpret things to. I'm not saying that's not an excuse for. I mean, Bobby Miller sucked yesterday, which sucks for him, sucks for the Dodgers. But this game tonight was a game between two first place teams that looked like they were both really good teams. And the Phillies came out on top, and it very easily could have been the other way. And that's okay. Like, this is what I expected coming into the series. Of course, coming into the series, I expected Tyler Glasnow to be pitching tomorrow. He won't be. I hoped that Bobby Miller would show up a little bit more. I expected three close games and one of the teams to win 2 out of the 3. This game was kind of what I expected. And I think, when you look at, you know, the Phillies are missing Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto. The Dodgers didn't have Mookie Betts or Max Muncy or Will Smith in the lineup in this game. Plus, they didn't have whoever they're going to get at the trade deadline. So it's hard to read too much into. I just did, right before I started this, I did a little spot for the Locked On Sports Today podcast talking about the Dodgers. And the fact is, we don't know what the Dodgers team will look like in October because there are absolutely obvious glaring holes for this team. That's not often the case for those. Usually there's at the trade deadline, it's here's a little way they could improve the team. Here's a marginal improvement. No, this team has needs. And that's kind of a good thing because it means that they're going to have to be active if anybody sells. That's my only concern is that with, you know, 85% of the league making the playoffs, maybe teams aren't going to be willing to sell. If there are teams selling, the Dodgers are going to be buying. So we'll have to see what the Dodgers team looks like in October. Theoretically, Mookie Betts will be back. Theoretically, Max Muncy will be back or replaced. one way or another. And the Dodgers will have, like, the only guy in the Dodgers' current starting rotation who is likely to pitch for them in October is Gavin Stone. Everybody else, like Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, they're not on the roster. Clayton Kershaw, who knows what he's going to be. Walker Buehler, Bobby Miller, these guys, we don't know what the Dodgers are going to have. But Stone's the only one who's a lock to pitch in the postseason, assuming he's healthy. And so it's hard to read too much into this one, which is good. And I've said this before. We spend most seasons kind of dreading the fact that how well they play in the regular season doesn't mean anything in October. This year it works in our favor. And then there's years like 2017 when the Dodgers were unbeatable all summer long, except when I was in attendance. For a span of 2.5 months, the Dodgers only lost back-to-back games twice, and those were the 4 games I went to. So I jinxed them. Other than that, they were like, I guess it wasn't 2.5 months, 2 months though. They went like 43-7, 44-7, I think. But they were 44-3 in games that I wasn't at. But so they were unbeatable all summer. And then they lost 15 out of 16, 16 out of 17 in late August, early September. They looked like the worst team in baseball. And then they went to the World Series and the other team had to cheat to win it. Like you never know. Baseball is so weird and fluky. All the Dodgers can do is try to put together as good a team as they can for October and hope that the right guys show up and they hit well in October, blah, 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 all that stuff. That's so this game, it was more fun to watch, honestly. Losing 10-1. It was kind of funny. I was just watching the postcast before I started here. And early on, Pete said, hold on, I need to get the exact quote. He said, it just seems to be getting worse day after day. No, losing 4-3 is much better than losing 10-1. Like from a fan enjoyment perspective, from a what does this mean, if anything, for the postseason? Like the fact is, what we saw here was the Phillies with a really good pitcher on the mound, the Dodgers with a really good pitcher on the mound, and a game of inches coming into play. That's fun. That's fun baseball. So I definitely would have preferred the Dodgers win the game, but it wasn't nearly as unfun as yesterday's game. Gavin Stone pitched pretty well. Like I said, things go differently. If Andy Paez catches that fly ball, maybe Stone gets through 6 innings and in line for a win. Giving up 4 runs in 4 2/3 innings looks a lot worse than what he pitched. He only allowed 1 hard hit ball in that inning, and that was the last pitch he threw, the double to Alec Boehm. Other than that, he pitched pretty well. I still do have some nagging concerns about Stone's lack of strikeouts. I do think, like, what we saw here was sometimes when you can't get the strikeouts, you get weak contact instead. And sometimes weak contact drops in or turns into an infield single, especially when it's Trey Turner running, all those things. So I would like Gavin Stone to strike out more guys, but really it's hard to quibble too much with his performance tonight against a really good Phillies team. Even without Bryce Harper, it's still a really good team, very good offensive team, good pitching, and the Dodgers were right in it. Feels like a moral victory or something, a cop out, but yeah, it was more fun than losing 10-1. That's just my opinion anyway. I'm going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about the other news. I think we're mostly done talking about this game. If anybody has any thoughts, stuff that I missed, or that you think I should have talked about, throw them in the chat. We'll try to catch up, but we're going to come back in a minute. We are going to talk about Bobby Miller getting sent to the minor leagues because that is big news. Talk about what it could mean for him, what it could mean for the Dodgers, what it could mean for River Ryan, a lot of other stuff. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Stitch Fix. Do you ever have one of those days where you just look good? I don't, but maybe you do. When your clothes are on point, you feel better in everything you do. If you're like that classic Barry Manilow song, I've been up, down, trying to get the feeling again, maybe you need a personal stylist from Stitch Fix. Stitch Fix stylists understand your style, size, and budget, and they do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to update and upgrade your wardrobe this season. If you're like me, you don't really like shopping for clothes. Heck, I don't even like choosing what to wear on any given day. I have to ask my wife almost every day if what I've chosen looks okay. The answer is usually no. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy because they do know what looks good and they do the shopping for you. Plus, they give you outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. And if they send you something that doesn't work for you for some reason, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $100 off. That's $20 to $25 off each of your first 4 fixes for a limited time only. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $100 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB. Must redeem within 7 days of sign up. Offer does not include kid fixes. This episode is also brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Dodgers, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, it's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. As I've mentioned before, I am an independent contractor working on this podcast, so the money I have coming in, I definitely need help from tax experts because it's a little bit more complicated than a W-2 employee. And with over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon and be sure to mention Locked On Dodgers at checkout and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. Hey, I'm back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning, and you can make that easy on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. It's text message based service, just a few bucks a month, free 14-day trial, and you can text directly with us, ask questions. You'll get our thoughts on stuff before we do the podcast, all that stuff. So check that out. You can also check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the 2 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Sports Los Angeles is where you can find the Locked On Dodgers postcast with Pete Fox after most Dodger games. And remember, you can catch every pitch of every Dodger game on SiriusXM or the SXM app simply by searching for Dodgers. And with that said, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat here too. When I'm doing a one-man show, it's a little bit more challenging. So I'm just going to scroll real quick. Nothing jumping out at me. Maddie kind of points out my thoughts on the Phillies. They can be beat. Just have to get healthy and add pieces. Yeah. Until I know what the Dodgers team is going to look like in October, I'm not going to stress about October. But Bobby Miller might be a little stressed right now. Maybe he's a little relieved. I don't know. I wonder how I would feel. Bobby Miller was optioned back to AAA on Wednesday before the game. They called up Ricky Vanasco to replace him on the roster. Some of that is just that they needed an extra bullpen arm, but also I mentioned this to the insiders when the news came down. It's kind of similar to the Tyler Glasnow news. The injured list and a minor league option both have a 15-day minimum. And so this is a case where, they are 3 days behind the Tyler Glasnow injured list. So Bobby Miller would probably have to miss 2 starts. Of course, there's also the exception. When you get sent to the minors, you can come back up in the case of an injury. So if somebody else went on the injured list, they could call up Bobby Miller sooner. But it doesn't sound like that's the plan. Dave Roberts said that Bobby Miller is going to work with the AAA, like the minor league pitching staff, and then join the Oklahoma City rotation after the All-Star break. And so that's it's probably good for him because as we talked about yesterday, Bobby Miller needs to figure some things out, and doing it at the big league level has got to be stressful. It's frustrating for him, I'm sure. As fans, it's frustrating for us, and that's no fun. Like, I really like Bobby Miller as a person. I think he's a nice guy. I remember last October, I was sitting near his parents at game 2 of the NLDS and seeing the look on his dad's face. I actually talked to his dad for a couple of minutes, like after Bobby got lit up a little bit. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the old man, the dad in me, but I hate to see these young guys struggle. And so if he's going to be figuring things out, I'd rather have him doing that in AAA where where it isn't in the limelight. Obviously, fans go to Oklahoma City games too, but not quite the same number of fans as come to Dodger games. It doesn't have the impact there. As far as I know, there's no daily podcast talking about everything he does after every start in Oklahoma City. There are a lot of Dodgers podcasts. There's this one and some that are almost as good. And so I think it's good for him to get out of the limelight because he does, as I mentioned yesterday, Sarah's talking about this stuff is still good. It might be a command thing. It might be the fastball has lost a little bit of velocity. Don't know if that's a part of it. He might be tipping pitches. Nothing to suggest that he is, other than the fact that he's getting hit hard. And so that sometimes is the first clue. So there's a lot of things that could be the problem. And I think it'll be a lot easier for him to figure these things out, to figure them out in AAA than to do it at the big league level. So what that means for the Dodgers right now, it's like I said, they have the All-Star break. He wasn't going to pitch again before the All-Star break anyway. They're probably going to do a bullpen game of some sort on Saturday or Sunday in the last couple games before the All-Star break against the Tigers. But Dave Roberts did say tonight that River Ryan is a possibility to come up and fill in for Bobby Miller at the big league level in the rotation. That would be very interesting. River Ryan has great stuff. He had a late start this season because of I think it was shoulder fatigue. But he's got great stuff. And if you listen to me talking to Keith Law about prospects the last 2 years, like Keith Law has been high on River Ryan longer than most people. He's got really good stuff. It will be a lot of fun. I think that in the long run, River Ryan is probably a better pitcher than, Emmett Sheehan and Landon Knack and guys like that, who there's definitely some promise for. I think River Ryan is probably better than them. And it's fun the way the Dodgers kind of pick the Padres' pockets to get River Ryan. It's a good story. There's all sorts of stuff going on that if River Ryan did get called up, that would be a lot of fun. Now, it might not be River Ryan because he's not currently on the 40-man roster. It's not a deal breaker, obviously. Justin Robleski wasn't on the 40-man roster either, and now he is. But, there's things they have to weigh beyond just who should we call up, who's the best pitcher. But the fact is they don't really have any other starters who are healthy and on the 40-man roster. So, it could be as simple as he makes the most sense. The decisions don't always come down to who's best, but sometimes they do. And maybe it will this time. In the end, Bobby Miller going down is frustrating for him, but like I said, probably a good thing in the long run. Just looking through the chat to see if there's anything about Bobby Miller that I need to address. Not seeing anything. So that's 2 straight days that a member of the Dodgers starting rotation was lost. Tyler Glasnow and now Bobby Miller. I think that's the 2 tallest guys in the rotation. The Dodgers' average height in the rotation has gone way down the last couple days. But for Glasnow, like we talked about, it's probably a good thing just to get him a break. And for Miller, it's definitely a good thing to get him. If he's going to get right, it's going to happen in AAA a lot easier than it happens in the big leagues. And I do think he's going to get right. I don't know if he will reach the peak that we thought he had, but I do think he's a lot better than he's been so far this year, really. That said, I'm going to come back in a minute. We're going to talk about the news we got during the game, which is that Teoscar Hernandez will be doing the home run derby. We'll talk about that, talk about, what that means for him. And then we'll dig into the chat a little bit. So if there's more stuff you want to talk about, shoot it in the chat and I will be right back. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode of Locked On Dodgers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about other teams' cities. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay even in a rival team city. If a city has a big league team, it also has great places to stay. I've booked great hotels in nearly every MLB city in America. I also booked a great hotel in a non-MLB city just last night because I'm going on a little weekend trip with my family. Not about baseball, still use booking.com and got a great deal. Booking.com makes it so much easier. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com or on the site or in the Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time. I've told you guys a lot about how great Game Time is when you need to get tickets to a Dodger game, some other sporting event, a comedy show. My favorite comedian, Nate Bargatze, I saw him in Salt Lake when he came. Whatever it is, Game Time is great for it. But last week, I had kind of my greatest experience with Game Time because I wanted to go see George Strait in Salt Lake. He is one of my favorite singers, and the prices had been pretty high. But all day Saturday, I was at my son's baseball tournament. I spent the whole day on Game Time watching prices drop, getting alerts on when seats in my section or my desired sections were available. And eventually, about 4 hours before the concert, my wife and I pulled the trigger and got a really good deal on really good seats. Got to go see King George in person again. It was awesome. I've used Game Time many times, but I have never before taken advantage of the last minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets. So we did that and it was totally worth it. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Hey, I'm back. Thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Man, 19 new chats while I was talking about Game Time and Booking.com, Booking.yeah. So, there's let's jump into a couple of these. I saw a comment from Tony saying that Andrew Friedman shouldn't mortgage the future on this year's deadline because this team has too many significant needs to fix it this year. I don't agree with that. I do think the Dodgers are a couple moves away from being, and they're already a very good team. Getting Mookie Betts and Max Muncy back, getting Tyler Glasnow and Yoshinobu Yamamoto back. If all those things happen, they can make no moves and still have a decent chance, as decent a chance as anybody else in the crapshoot that is the MLB playoffs. But then Matty Man 5 Dodge points out the Dodgers have a 40-man roster crunch coming up. The Dodgers this year would need to make some trades at the trade deadline, even if they didn't have glaring needs, just because they have guys. There's not going to be room for everybody who needs to be on the 40-man roster this fall. And so you run the risk of losing guys for nothing. So I think they would be active even if they didn't have glaring needs. The fact that they do have needs just makes it easier. Tris says trade Lux, Biggio, and Taylor for a bag of chips, please. Kevin Biggio will not be traded. He'll be DFA'd at some point. Maybe he'll be traded for, if somebody has an extra bag of chips. But the problem with trying to trade guys whose value is low is that their value is low, so other teams don't want them. Just looking at the rest of the chat, scrolling through, and the Dodgers are going to, if they're healthy, next year looks really good with Ohtani coming back as a pitcher, possibly bringing Roki Sasaki. The Dodgers are built to win now, but also long-term. And I think that's going to be their approach this trade deadline. Let's talk though about the news that we got during this game. Teoscar Hernandez was mic'd up, which, I said before, I don't like players being mic'd up during games. I'm more okay with it with a right fielder than, say, a third baseman, especially a third baseman who doesn't play a lot of third base like Kike Hernandez was a couple of weeks ago. I understand why the players do it. They get $10,000 every time they do it. And even when you're a millionaire, $10,000 is $10,000, and I guess for casual fans, it does make it more interesting. In fact, I think it's more interesting if I don't care who wins. But when I'm watching a Dodger game, I very much care who wins. And so I don't like people being mic'd up. But when it's a right fielder, it's not as big a deal. No balls were hit to Teoscar while he was talking. And he did announce that he is going to be in the home run derby, which is exciting for him. He definitely really wanted to do it. And it's exciting for us. Like, Teoscar is fun to watch. He's got a great personality. That's what comes out uh, in these home run derbies. Like, you get to see the personalities, and they just have so much fun. I think Teoscar is going to have as much fun as anybody being in this home run derby. And the fact is, you got Pete Alonso, who has won it a couple times. Other than that, like, there's nobody really who jumps out as this guy is the favorite. And so, if Alonso has to be the favorite, but beyond that, I think Teoscar Hernandez has a decent chance to get things done. He's got a lot of power. Nobody's going to be throwing him sliders, assuming Dino Abel doesn't throw him sliders. Teo should be fun to watch in the home run derby. I don't buy into the idea of guys ruining their swings. And the fact is, Teo, he's had some big moments for the Dodgers this year. He's hit really well. He's hit a lot of home runs. He's not what you would call a great hitter. He's a good power hitter, and he's had some clutch moments. Although, as I pointed out and got yelled at for his actual clutch stats aren't. He's actually a little bit worse in clutch situations than he is overall. But he's had some memorable clutch moments, and so I'm not really worried about him struggling because of this. It's batting practice where you're trying to hit home runs. I don't think it's that big a deal. Most of the time when guys struggle after the home run derby, it's like, I remember when Adam Duvall was in the home run derby 8 or 10 years ago, and then he sucked in the second half. And I pointed out, well, that's probably because Adam Duvall wasn't actually very good. The reason he made it to the home run derby is because he was playing over his head in the first half, hit a lot of home runs. And so that might be the case with Teo too. He might not be a true 40 home run guy or 35 home run guy like he's on pace for. And so if he struggles in the second half, it might just be him coming back to earth, which we've kind of seen lately anyway. His home run pace has slowed down quite a bit. But I don't think it's going to be because of the home run derby. And the fact that he really wants to do it is enough for me. Craig says home run derby is bad for your swing. I just don't think there's any evidence of that. And I am a big fan of evidence. And, people talked about Jock Peterson. Jock Peterson's struggles started 3 weeks before that home run derby. So that was the home run derby was so bad for his swing that it made him suck for 3 weeks beforehand too. The fact is, Jock was playing over his head that rookie year. Corey Seager has been in the home run derby, and his number went down, but he was still good. Corey Seager's not really a home run hitter. He's a great hitter with he's strong, has power, but not what you would call a typical home run hitter. But yeah, if you look at everybody who's been in the home run derby, the guys who struggle in the second half, it's usually because they were playing over their heads in the first half, and that's how they got into the home run derby. So I don't necessarily, I'm not worried about him ruining his swing. I am glad that Shohei Ohtani's not doing it because Shohei is still rehabbing his elbow, and the risk of injury is actually something that I'm concerned about. Risk of ruining your swing doesn't concern me at all. And so when you look at how much Teo wants to be in it, for me, that's enough. Just going to look through James Outman. James Outman would probably be good in the home run derby because he's got a ton of power. I've often said I would rather see a home run derby of guys like Luke Raley and what was that guy's name? William Opeña. Guys who aren't going to make an all-star team, so they're never going to be in a home run derby. But man, they could put on a show. I think back to Wes Chamberlain from the Phillies in the early 90s. The best hitter I ever saw was batting practice Wes Chamberlain in 1992, 93, one of those years. Just a beast. I would much rather see a home run derby between those guys. Like Jose Ramirez, yeah, he's going to hit 11 home runs or whatever. Jose Ramirez is a great player. I'm not excited to watch him hit home runs. I would much rather see Luke Raley hit home runs. Guys like that, James Outman, guys who, I would love for them to add a second home run derby for guys who aren't probably ever going to make an all-star team, but they sure can hit some BP home runs. That would be a lot of fun for me. I've seen people saying that they should do a pitcher's home run derby. Obviously that hasn't gotten as much traction since pitchers stopped hitting at all. I was never on board with that because I don't need to go watch Jake Arrieta hit 4 home runs in batting practice. No thanks. But these guys who can just punish a batting practice fastball, like I think you would see more impressive home runs with Luke Raley and James Outman than you would with Jose Ramirez and whoever else is in this one. Like Adolis Garcia, he's going to hit a ton. He's a big, strong guy. Obviously, Pete Alonso, but yeah, I'm excited for the home run derby. It's one of my favorite parts of All-Star Week, especially since they changed the rules, made it a little bit more fast paced. And I'm glad that Teoscar Hernandez is in it. Just looking through the chat, see if there's anything else that we need to talk about. Well, yeah, Matt says that, if Aaron Judge was in it, sure. Kyle Schwarber, sure. But that's not who we have in this home run derby. Like Jose Ramirez is 5'6", like, and nothing against short guys, and he can hit home runs, but it's not as impressive to watch those guys. I would love to watch Aaron Judge and Kyle Schwarber hit home runs, but when you've got guys like, I think Luke Raley would be more impressive in a home run derby than Aaron Judge. Not nearly as good a hitter, stronger, more power. I said it. That's about all I am going to say about that. I think I'm about done here, unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about in the chat, but my time's about up anyway. So yeah, rough game. Dodgers have the chance to salvage one game of the series. Aaron Nola against Landon Knack on Thursday. We'll see what happens. Definitely favors the Phillies in the pitching matchup, although Knack has been solid for the most part this year. We'll see if Bryce Harper is back in the lineup for the Phillies. See what happens. But I'm hoping the Dodgers can at least play a real baseball game. That game on Tuesday wasn't fun. The game on Wednesday was fun at least. So if they have fun, not participation trophy, all that matters is having fun. But games in July don't really matter that much. If they have a competitive game, then we can start thinking about the All-Star break and start thinking about who the Dodgers are going to get at the trade deadline. So that'll do it for me. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching and listening right now so you can become an everydayer. If you have friends and family who love the Dodgers, please tell them about the show. Appreciate those of you who are hopping in. I know that I've been chatting with some of Clint's buddies in his Discord group from Clint from All Dodgers. So thank you guys for being here. Remember, you can check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Sports LA is where you can get the Locked On Dodgers postcast after almost every Dodger game. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. It's fun. Text directly with us, one-on-one conversations, just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial. You can follow Locked On Dodgers on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open over there. You can also email us, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send us a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.